celestial orbs conduct their dance of eons while the chains, cogs of our terrestrial existence continue to trace the minuscule course of insignificance. All the while, I think about bikes. Welcome to How I Think About Bikes. Here we are. It's the April episode in May. And I'm sure you're excited to find out. Did I finish the Maruishi? Did I ride across the St. Lawrence River? Did I get to see the eclipse? We'll get to that. But first, we're not going anywhere without Bartape. I'm not going to lie, I have a complicated relationship with Bartape. I'm always worried about wrapping it perfectly and if other cyclists will judge me.
I'll teach you how to do some Bartape wrapping one day, Stu.
Yeah, well, again.
The pressure is difficult to bear. On the other hand, I also often find myself in situations where soiling my perfect wrap is unavoidable. I can't always wash my hands after changing a flat on the road, for example. So I picked up this newfangled grep tape that has some sort of rubber backing and no adhesive. Supposedly it's also washable. Now I can just slap the wrap on however which way and tell myself that I'll do a nice job of rewrapping next time. Also, this bike was not designed for this kind of cable setup, with brifters and drops, so the cable routing is currently unconventional. But with the grep wrap, it should be easier to switch things around and experiment a little. We also aren't going anywhere without a chain. Let's get that sweet KMC black and silver BMX chain on there. I feel like the right chain tension for a single speed or hub gear bike is a bit more of an art than a science. Pulling the back wheel back pretty darn firm seems about right. I did this at the bike co-op because I don't have a chain tool. The bike co-op has like 5 chain tools, but the pins were all varying degrees of bent. Be careful with chain tools, folks. Public service announcement, spread the word. If you are using a chain tool to push a pin out of a chain, make sure everything is perfectly lined up and the chain is in the tool properly. The mechanical advantage you have when you turn the screw handle is enough to ruin any part of the tool or your chain. Man, all of your chain tools are so jacked up. It's not like anyone forces them. Of course not. Who would do that? That seems crazy. Anyhow, with enough cussing, I made the least bendy one work. Next order of business is some new rubber. I have designs on taking on a few Northeast style trails this summer, and the old hard chunky slicks are not going to cut it. These Rene Hurst tires are probably some of the priciest 26-inch tires on the market, but I have been wanting for years to see what all the hype was about. They have very supple sidewalls, and supposedly that makes for a really sweet ride. And it's true. I've put about 50 kilometers on these tires so far, and they are super, super plush. The bike feels completely different. Bike nerds are always saying stuff like, oh, the tire is the most important part of the bike. It contributes most to the feel of how it is to ride. And they're totally correct. The tires are set up to be tubeless compatible, but I'm using tubes right now. Maybe we'll move to tubeless at some point. The rims are ready to go, so it's just a matter of switching over. The only downside I found is that these are probably the most difficult tires to get off the rim that I have ever encountered. So I'm going to need another set of tire levers in case I break one. I was really excited when the dynamo light finally came in. I've been dreaming of having a dynamo light set up for years and years. The idea of sacrificing a little wattage so that I can have one less thing in my life that requires a charger just feels like a good idea. I went with a sort of mid-range B&M setup. The reviews seemed to indicate that it was fairly robust in the rain and wasn't as expensive as some of the more boutique lights. The wiring was fairly straightforward. The Shimano hub is grounded to the fork, and the B&M headlight also has output wires to the tail light. I'm not sure how I feel about the cable management, but that can evolve over time as well. Especially since I plan on changing the rack setup a bit. I was able to take a rip and test the lights out after dark, and they are plenty bright and provide a steady beam past jogging speed. Any slower and the capacitor keeps the lights on for a few minutes. The backlight stays on much longer than the front, as it should be. So, is the bike done? No, the bike is not done. I'm still waiting on the parts that allow me to shift the Alphine hub. But for now, I can still ride it as a single speed. Of course, it's stuck in the tallest gearing, so I'm not climbing any hills, but I can rip around the river paths just fine. I've put about 50 kilometers on so far, and it rides just like I was hoping it would. I'm not riding anywhere this week, though, because as you can see, there's a part missing. This is everything on the bike except for one piece, the frame. When I was doing the cleaning, I noticed a small crack right where the seat stay connects to the seat tube. And at first I thought maybe if I ignored it, it would go away. But then I realized that that's not how cracks work. They tend to do the opposite and get bigger. So I contacted a local frame builder and asked them very nicely if they could do a little weld and fill that crack in for me. And they said that they would repair it. So I'm waiting for that to come back. So did I get across the St. Lawrence River? Yes, I did. I have another bike that has already been built that I can ride. So I took a rip with my wife and we checked out the Estacade over the river. It was very cool. It's an old ice bridge. It stops icebergs from coming in and like doing a Titanic to the ships in the port, I guess. It's a long river and we saw a lot of wildlife. We saw some gooses. The red-winged blackbirds were out. I even saw the first snake of the season. I hope he's okay because it definitely snowed like 30 centimeters shortly after I took this picture. The signs for the Estacade were a little bit hard to read, except for the COVID one for some reason in 2024. So did I get to see the eclipse? Of course I saw the eclipse. It was in the beginning of the video. Join us next time when we go on a very special bike ride to a very special place.